Over my shoulder, you will see some of the thousands of homes that are built into the side of the mountains here. That these ones that you see over my shoulder, incredibly, were not impacted by the earthquake. But as we flew from the Dominican Republic, from Santo Domingo into Port-au-Prince, we began to see right away some of the devastation caused by this earthquake. And we saw, for one thing, a lot of homes that were imploded. It looked as though they had been imploded. And then when we finally set down our helicopter at the airport here, we saw cracks in the airport. We saw people teaming outside, lined up, but patiently, without causing any problem, waiting to see whether they could get a commercial flight out. There was no way that was going to happen. But the real impact was when we started to drive through the streets of Port-au-Prince, in particular one of the neighborhoods called Delma, and where our driver told us, you are going to see a lot of death here. And in fact, that's exactly what we saw. As we drove block after block, we saw first one body, then two bodies, then three, then four at a time, then five lined up, block after block after block, each of these covered by sheets. And then in an almost chilling scene, you would see people in some instances sitting nearby, some of them with vacant stares in their eyes, just sitting in the middle of the street. At times you would see young children walking about as though seeing this horror didn't bother them. And you had to wonder, is that because this country has suffered so much and through so many natural disasters over so many years? But you also saw a sense of people trying to help each other. For example, as we drove up a major thoroughfare teeming with people, you saw people walking down the middle of the street using a makeshift gurney with someone who was injured, one of the earthquake victims, on top. And you saw collapsed buildings, one right after the other, pancake down both homes and businesses. For example, a gas station that had crumbled. We also were able to witness one gas station, incredibly, that was open and had gas, and you can imagine what those lines look like. But this is a country that has suffered yet another blow. Almost 3 million people in the city of Port-au-Prince, the capital city. Major damage to the National Palace. We have not yet been to any of the hospitals yet, but again, we've heard some of the estimates of numbers of dead, and we can only begin to imagine how those numbers will actually add up in the end after seeing just what we did over the course of just a few hours. The downtown area has suffered a lot of damage, and some of the other buildings and homes, obviously, up into the hills. But then you will also see off in the distance areas that seem untouched. As we flew in on the outskirts, we didn't see a lot of damage, but we saw several buildings that have been damaged. So how widespread it is hard to say on the outskirts, but in the city, and we've just begun to look around, it is terrible. It is just terrible, and it is heartbreaking to see.